All right, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the informational webinar about a research study on making hazard mitigation planning more meaningful for low capacity communities. My name is Rachel Riley, and I am the director of the Southern Climate Impacts Planning Program at the University of Oklahoma. And I am joined by my colleague, Darian Bertrand, who will be assisting with some of the logistics and kind of being on the backside of this webinar today. So thanks so much for joining us. A little housekeeping up front is that we have automatically muted and turned off your videos, but at the end, there will be a time for questions where you will be able to either enter questions in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question. And of course, you can also ask questions or type your question in the chat at any time as well. All right, let's move forward here. So first, I want to mention the organizations involved in this study. For those of you who are not aware of who SCIPP is, our organization, we were established in 2008, and we're one of several National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Climate Adaptation Partnerships teams. It's kind of a mouthful. We used to be called RISA teams, if anyone is familiar with that language. The name recently changed. We're led by the University of Oklahoma, but are partnered closely with Louisiana State University, Texas Sea Grant at Texas A&M University, and Adaptation International, which is a small private company based out of Austin, Texas. SCIPP collaboratively produces research, tools, and knowledge that reduce weather and climate risk and impacts across the south-central U.S. And the region that we cover is that which you see on your screen, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And for more information, you can visit our website at southernclimate.org. In this study, we're also working closely with the National Hazard Mitigation Association, which also coincidentally was established in 2008. NHMA promotes natural hazard risk reduction and climate adaptation through planning, adaptation, and mitigation, and their website is nhma.info. So those are the organizations involved, but I want to give you some faces of the people that are actually involved, since that'll kind of help orient you to what's going on here. So as I mentioned, my name is Rachel Riley. I'm the lead researcher associated with this project. Darian will be assisting with some of the logistics and kind of communications and organization of the cohorts, which I'll talk about later on. And then we also have 3 people from the National Hazard Mitigation Association, Ed Hecker, Annie Best, and David Vaughn, who are mostly serving in an advisory capacity, but their names might pop up from time to time. So we want you to be aware that they are also involved in this work. And also, FEMA Region 6 is aware of this study and is involved in meetings. So they're kind of also playing a background role as well. So the purpose of the study is to engage with decision makers who work in or with low capacity communities within the South Central US, the states that you see on the screen, to determine how to make the hazard mitigation planning process more meaningful and effective. For our purposes, we don't have a single definition of low capacity. We understand that depending on the community, there's various factors at play, but generally speaking, it's communities that lack one or more of the following, and that might be expertise to apply for and or manage federal grants. Some kind of technical expertise is lacking, such as engineering, GIS, natural hazards, climate knowledge. Other kinds of resources are lacking, or even public or political support are lacking. And so we don't want to be overly prescriptive in what low capacity is, but those are some ideas of what we're looking at here. So the primary motivation for this study is that through work that SCIPP has done and NHMA has done over the years, and other organizations and scholars, we have found that it has been difficult for many of the local officials and counties and municipalities within the SCIPP region to get their, not only just complete the hazard mitigation plan, but also be able to use it in a way that's, makes impact on the communities and is worth their time. And there's a lot of factors at play for why some of this work is lacking. And so I'm going to tell you a few of those right now. One of those is that immediate local priorities often trump long-term risk reduction, which is ultimately what the purpose of hazard mitigation planning is. And it can be difficult to obtain buy-in from city and county officials who have the decision-making power. Some studies have found that many plans are of mediocre quality, and many jurisdictions across the country still don't have a plan or let their plans expire for various reasons. There's also at times inconsistent application and complexity of FEMA requirements across different regions of the country and the states that make the application process very difficult for some local level officials. And another finding has been that the hazard mitigation planning process and interpretation of plan requirements is prohibitive for many communities due to limited capacity based on the factors that I just spoke about. So, long-term disaster risk reduction, which again is basically the point of hazard mitigation planning, is complex and complicated. There's a lot of factors at play. It's not a simple thing to complete typically. It's often interdisciplinary and technical. There's many sources of funding involved that can play into the ability of a community to take action. There's often competing priorities at local levels, like I talked about in the earlier slide. From a public perception standpoint, it's typically not very exciting. I mean, maybe those of us working in this space think it's exciting because we, kind of nerd out about it at times, but typically it's not very exciting to the average person, and therefore can kind of get, doesn't get the public support. There's also political will needed often to make decisions and to spend money on projects. It can be difficult for low capacity communities to compete for grant funding. Public support's needed, as I mentioned, and also high turnover in local government is a factor in terms of just being able to continue progress and build on what's been done. And we recognize that the problems related to hazard planning and disaster risk reduction and the solutions for how to address those problems are larger than what a single agency or organization can address and provide. But with this study, we're hoping to tackle one piece of that, which if you choose to participate, will of course be detailing, providing more details about what we'll be doing, but we'll be starting with the FEMA Region 6 template as a starting point, and then go from there to try to improve the process and the resources that are available to you. So we are looking to enroll decision makers such as yourselves that have ideas and want to have a positive impact on your communities in terms of hazard mitigation planning. We're going to organize 5 cohorts, 1 in each state, except there will be 2 in Texas, given the vast geographical extent of Texas. And we're aiming to enroll about 10 decision makers per cohort. And you are eligible to participate if you work in Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and/or Texas. You're a planner, emergency manager, a city or town manager, consultant, or some kind of related official, and that includes council of government officials. And you work in or with a municipality or a county or parish that has limited capacity to develop and carry out hazard mitigation planning and implementation. So we know everyone's busy. We want to be upfront with what the expected commitment would be for this project. And the involvement would take place over a period of about 2 years. The primary involvement will be kind of earlier on in that 2-year period. But there's 4 planned kind of meetups that will occur, and those are what you see in the green rectangles. So the first will be a 2-hour virtual meeting in May, and then there will be another 2-hour virtual meeting in the summer. And then in the fall of 2023, we'll host about a 3/4 day in-person meeting that will be based on the cohort's location. So try to make it, most easy for everyone to get to that in-person meeting. And then there will be another half-day virtual meeting sometime next spring in 2024. So over the period, it's about, we're estimating about 24 non-consecutive hours. Most of those hours will be used up based on the engagements that I detailed in the green rectangles. But there might be, a little bit of email traffic, maybe reviewing some documents or providing additional insight. But the goal is to, try to not take up too much of your time, because we understand that you are all very busy, and yeah, we don't want to overburden you. So the exact days and times for these meetings will be determined by the availability of each cohort, and we will provide mileage cost reimbursement and food at the in-person meeting. So the next steps would be to fill out the interest form that we have prepared. And this form is just to give us kind of a sense of, just basic information about who you are, what, where you work, both, public sector, private sector, and then a geographical area. So the form asks for basic contact information, basic demographic information for your position, and then a little bit about why you are interested in participating, as well as how you see the areas that you work in as being low capacity, and why you think it'd be good to participate in the study. And Darian has put the tiny URL link that goes to the interest form in the chat. It's also on the screen here. You can type the URL into your browser or use the QR code. And we will be accepting the interest forms through April 5th, 2023. And then shortly after, we'll be forming the cohorts and, really kind of moving forward, because I mentioned in the previous slide about the May 2023 virtual meetings that will occur. So with that, we want to open up the form for questions. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so anyone can view this after the fact. We realized that there wasn't a whole lot of lead time before holding this webinar from when the announcements were sent out. And so if you know anyone that might be interested in participating, please feel free to share this information with them. The webinar recording will be prominent on our homepage, southernclimate.org, and it's also going to be on our SCIPP's YouTube channel as well. So if you have questions, you are welcome to type the question in the chat box, or we can also, let's see, I think you can use the raised hand function, and Darian will be able to unmute you if you would like. And then another option, if you have questions, is to contact Darian at the email address you see on the screen, or the phone number if you would rather have a phone call. So with that, let's see. Does anybody have any questions?
If you can't find the raise your hand function, you're free to just unmute yourself or show your video. You do have permission to do that now.
Thank you, Darian.
Could you go back to the slide that defines the size of each cohort?
Sure. Oops. This one?
Yeah. Okay. So each cohort's going to have 10 participants.
Approximately, yes.
approximately?
Yeah,
Okay,
we realize, we'll we don't want it too small and don't want it too big, but approximately 10.
okay. Well, I don't really have a question. I admittedly don't know too much about hazard mitigation planning, but I guess I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know how timely this is, just from from my perspective and my agency.
Yeah.
So I'm with ACOG, Alamo Area Council of Governments, and my executive director forwarded me this information last week. And of course, as a council of governments, our bread and butter is helping communities with low capacity.
Mhm.
That's the cornerstone of our existence. And we were recently awarded a grant from our state emergency energy, our state energy conservation office to work with local governments on a regional energy management program. And a big component of that is to get them to incorporate uh, energy resilience into their hazard mitigation plans. And so on Wednesday, I presented before our regional emergency preparedness advisory committee. And I promoted this study and our regional energy management program. And, when I proposed incorporating energy resiliency, the response I got was that it's not necessarily a priority at the state level. So, if you're a low capacity community, you're not going to, you can't afford to go, to above and beyond. So that was the main takeaway I had. So I don't know if, like I said, I don't know too much myself about emergency preparedness. I'm more the air quality and energy efficiency side. So
That's great.
I'm looking forward to seeing what this is about.
Yeah, no, that's great context. And
Hopefully being able to help.
that context raises an important point that I didn't make yet, which is that, we're starting with kind of the FEMA hazard mitigation plan as a starting conversational point, but we recognize that hazard planning is related to all kinds of different plans. And you just mentioned the energy resilience plan. So, so for anyone listening, we want you to be aware that we are thinking about hazard planning in a very holistic way, and not just the FEMA hazard mitigation plan, but that will be a starting point for the conversation in the cohorts.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that, Lyle. Let's see, we have a comment in the chat about being hesitant to commit to the in-person meeting. Yeah, so the in-person meeting is tentatively scheduled for the fall timeframe, so that might work with your schedule. But again, we know that there's, people have various schedule needs and all that, and so I would say for sure still submit your interest form, and then we can, work with your needs and try to make it work. Thank you for that comment. Let me go back real quick just to the other slides so you guys can see that. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. And just a reminder again that we realized that the announcement for this, informational webinar was not very long after the original announcement of the study came out. And so there's definitely still time to pass along the information. Like I said earlier in the slides, the interest forms are due by the end of the day on April 5th. So there's still some time, and the interest form itself, it's not binding you to anything. It's just expressing your interest in the study. And of course, we would communicate after that and just kind of, get everything squared away. Again, we'll be recording this, and if you know of other colleagues that might be interested, or other people, other states within the region, counties, what have you, please pass this information along to them. And we're really looking forward to working with decision makers such as yourself to try to tackle some of the issues of hazard planning and resilience, and trying to get past some of the barriers that exist, because as you saw in the slide, it's very complex and it's not an easy thing. But hopefully if we put our heads together, we can make some progress in this area. So thank you so much for joining today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.